Hey guys, it's Miss Sneed. We are looking at Morning Math 19A. This is for today. This is also going to be posted for tomorrow if you didn't get to it today. Just because we're going to take Morning Math 19, A, B, C, and D, and we're going to work on them over the rest of this week and all of next week. And then we'll have our test next Friday, Thursday or Friday for it. So make sure you're looking out to see when the test will be. It'll either be next Thursday or next Friday. I haven't decided which one. Most likely next Friday. So we'll keep that kind of the same. But we are looking at number 1 at the top. It says 25 times 8700. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn my paper sideways so that I have plenty of room to write. I'll zoom in for you. And I'm going to go ahead and write 25 times decimal 8700. Now remember, there's 2 numbers behind the decimal. So I remember in our answer, there's also going to be 2 numbers behind the decimal. So first I'm going to start with the 7. So 7 times 5 is 35. So I'm going to write my 5, carry my 3. 7 times 2 is 14. Excuse me, plus 3 more is 17. So I'm going to write 17. Okay, now I've got to do my housekeeping, which is marking out my 7, erasing what I carried, and putting a 0 below the 5. So now I'm on my 8. 8 times 5 is 40, so I'm going to write a 0, carry my 4. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 4 more is 20. So I'm going to write 20, and then my line, now I add 5 plus 0 is 5, 7 plus 0 is 7, 1 plus 0 is 1, and bring down my 2. And then from here, I need to make sure I have 2 numbers behind the decimal in my answer because there were 2 numbers behind the decimal in the question. So 1, 2. So my decimal is going to go between the 1 and the 7. So therefore, my answer is 21 75/100. Okay. Now, number 2, I changed because it did have a decimal on the divisor. I didn't want a decimal on the divisor just because we have not talked about that yet. So I changed it to just 5.4 or 5 4/10 divided by just 6. So I want you to do the same thing. And make sure you're paying attention on it. So we're going to do 5 4/10 divided by just 6 by itself. Excuse me. So we know that 6 cannot go into 5 because 5 is too small. So we're going to put a 0 on top of the 5. But then we have 6 divided by 54. Well, I know that 6 times 9 is 54. So I'm going to put my 9 up top, bring my 5 and my 4 down, 54. And then I'm going to subtract, which is going to give me 0. And then my final answer is not just 9. I've got to take this decimal and bring it straight up and put it in my answer. So now my answer is 9/10. Okay. We are looking right here. It says, show how to use multiplication to check your answer to the division problem above. Well, we know that we take our answer and multiply it by the divisor. So I'm going to take 0, 9/10 times 6. 9 times 6 is 54. 6 times 0 is 0. I have 1 number behind the decimal. So I need 1 number behind the decimal, which gives me 5.4 or 5 4/10. So we know that is correct. Okay. We're looking at number 3. We have quite a bit of work to do on number 3. So let's go ahead and get started. So it says 2 5/6 plus 2 3/8. Well, I know that I cannot add both of those together because they do not have common denominators. And to be able to add fractions together, they have to have the same denominator. Now, on some tests, you may have an answer choice that says, for example, where they added 5 plus 3 is 8, and then 6 plus 8 which is 14, I'm sorry. And you may have an answer that says that where they just added the denominators together. Well, that's supposed to be a distractor or something that's supposed to distract you or confuse you. But that answer is ignored because remember, we know when we're adding or subtracting fractions, they have to have the same or a common denominator. So currently we do not have a common denominator, but the way we can do that or find that is by finding the multiples of both 6 and 8 to see what number will be our common denominator. So up here above number 3, I'm going to start listing our common denominators for 6. So 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 6 is 36. I think that's probably as far as we need to go for right now. And if we need to go any further, we can. So now I'm going to do 8. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 3 is 24. And like I said, I was right. We don't need to go any further because they both have 24 in common. So I know that now my denominator is going to be 24. So now I'm going to take 5/6 and I've got to figure out what did I multiply by to get to 24. So 6 times what equals 24? Well, we know 6 times 4 is 24, and whatever we do to the bottom, we've also got to do to the top. So 5 times 4 is 20. So now my new fraction is 20 24ths. So we need to do the same thing for 3/8. So I'm going to come down here and put 3/8 and 24. And now I need to figure out what times 8 got me to 24. Excuse me, I'm sorry, guys. So 8 times 3 is 24. And remember, whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So 3 times 3 is 9. So now our new problem is 2 and 20 24ths plus 2 and 9 24ths. Well, if we were to add up just our fractions to begin with, we would be left with 29 24ths. And if we look at that, we notice that that's an improper fraction because 29 is larger than 24. So we know that we can take at least 24 of those out. Well, if we take 24 out, we'd be taking out a whole. So 24 24ths, which is equal to 1 whole. So we took 24 out of both the top and out of the top. And if we did 29 minus 24, we would be left with 5 24ths. So now if we put everything back together, we have our final fraction, which is 5 24ths. But now we need to add our whole numbers. So 2 plus 2 is 4. And then plus 1 more is 5. So our final answer is 5 and 5 24ths. For number 3, your answer was 5 and 5 24ths. So now let's look down at number 4. Still working with fractions. This time we are working subtraction instead of addition. But again, we look and they have 2 different denominators. So we know right from the start, we need to go ahead and find the multiple that is going to give us our common denominator. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom and do 4 and 7. So 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 5 is 20, 4 times 6 is 24, 4 times 7 is 28, 4 times 8 is 32, and I think we can stop for right now. 7 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 3 is 21. 7 times 4 is 28. And again, 28 is going to be our common denominator because it's common in both of them. So now I've got to change my fraction. So 1/4 changes to what 28? So what times 4 did we use to get to 28? We know that 7 times 4 is 28. So 4 times 7. And whatever we do to the bottom, we also do to the top. So 1 times 7 would get us to 7/28. And then we have 3/7. And we need to figure out what times 7 got us to 28. Well, we know 7 times 4. And whatever you do to the bottom, you also do to the top. So 3 times 4, which gets us to 12. So 12/28. Now, here's the tricky part. Let's put it all back together and see what we can do now. 3 and 7/28 minus 1 and 12/28. Well, if we look at it, yes, we can subtract 3 minus 1, but we cannot subtract 12 from 7. So what we have to do is we have to borrow. And remember, we just did this on our last math test. So I've got to come to this whole number, my 3, and I've got to take a whole out of it. I've got to take a whole piece out of it. Well, if I change that whole to 2, when I take that whole out, I'm really taking out 28/28. 28/28. Well, I know when I take that whole out, I've got to add it back to my fraction. So now I've got 28/28 plus 7/28, which is going to get me 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 30. Oh, I went too far. I'm sorry. Should be 35. Let's check and see. 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. Yep. So it's going to get me 35/28. So now I can do 35/28 minus 12/28. So now I'm going to do 35 minus 12/28, which is going to give me 23/28. And then we also have to come back and add our whole numbers back. 2 minus 1 is 1. So our final answer is 1 and 23/28. So number 4, your answer is 1 and 23/28. That was a lot of work, but you should know how to do all of that based off of what we've been doing in math the last few days. So now, up here at number 5, it says, Mrs. Gardner paid for 12 snow cones for her daughter and her friends. If the snow cones cost $2.25 each, how much did Mrs. Gardner pay? Well, we know that 1 snow cone equals $2.25, but we don't want to know how much 1 cost. We want to know how much 12 cost. So what we need to do is we're going to multiply to find out how much she spent total. So what I'm going to do is put $2.25 on top because it's your bigger number times 12. It's got the most digits. That's what I mean by that when I say bigger number. And I'm going to start with my 2. So 2 times 5 is 10. Write my 0, carry my 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 more is 5. 2 times 2 again is 4. Now I need to do my housekeeping, so I'm going to mark out my 2, erase what I carried, and put a 0 below. So now I have 1 times 5 is 5, 1 times 2 is 2, and 1 times 2 is 2 again. So now I don't have anything else to multiply by. So now I just need to add everything together. So 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 5 is 10. So I'm going to write my 0, carry my 1. 1 plus 4 is 5. Plus 2 more is 7. and I'm going to bring down my 2. Well, up in my question, I had 2 numbers behind the decimal. So in my answer, I need 2 numbers behind the decimal. So Mrs. Gardner paid $27 for her daughter and her friends to eat snow cones. You have to make sure that you put that decimal back in. Okay. Now we are on number 6. It says Tyrone spent half of an hour on his math homework and 2/3 of an hour on his writing homework. How long did Tyrone spend on his homework? Okay. Well, again, he spent a half hour on his math work and 2/3 of an hour on his writing work. Well, we need to know what it is together, combined. So what I have to do is add them both together. But if I write them out like this, I cannot add those numbers together because they do not have a common denominator. So let's find a common denominator. Let's go over here. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Sorry, wasn't paying attention. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 5 is 10. So let's stop there. Now let's do 3. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. And we can stop there because they both have 6 in common. So now, whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. And we know to get from 2 to 6, we multiply by 3. So 3/6. And then 2/3. We know to get from 3 to 6, we multiply by 2. And whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So 2 times 2 is 4. So now I have 3/6 plus 4/6 is 7/6. And we know that's an improper fraction again. So if we were to do the division, we would get 1 and 1/6 hour. So he spent an hour and 1/6. He spent 1 and 1/6 hour on his homework. Number 7, there are 156 fifth graders going on a field trip. If each bus holds 65 students, how many buses will be needed for the field trip? Okay, now we're not adding more fifth graders. We're not adding any more fifth graders, just to start with that. So if we're not adding more fifth graders, that means we're taking those fifth graders and we're dividing them among the buses that we have. And it says each bus holds 65 students. So if we're going to divide the students amongst the buses, then we need to know how many buses we need total. So we're going to divide. So we're going to put 156 divided by 65. And we know that 65 cannot go into 1 because it's too small. It also cannot go into 15 because it's still too small. So now we have 65 into 156. Well, I know that 65 is close to, it's close to 70. Well, if I want to do 70 times, what times 70 is going to get me closest to 156? Let's say 2. That's going to get me 140. Or I could do 70 times 3. It's going to get me, nope, 70 times 3 is going to be too big, so it's going to get me 210. So let's start with 2. 65, and this may not work. 65 times 2. 2 times 5 is 10, so I'm going to write my 0, carry my 1. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 more is 13. And I got an answer of 130. So let's try it and see if it works. 2, 130, and then we subtract. 6 minus 0 is 6. 5 minus 3 is 2. So it says that I will need 2 buses total, but then I have a remainder of 26 kids. So I have 26 kids currently that don't have a bus. Well, if they're going on this field trip too, then they've got to have a bus to ride as well. So technically, I'd have to round up and move that up to 3 buses total, because every student is going, and I can't just have these 26 fit on those other 2 buses, and they can't be left behind. So we need an extra bus for them to ride with us. So for number 7, our answer is 3 buses. Okay. And then number 8, we have our order of operations. And if you remember, it's please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And if we know what those mean, it's parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. Well, we can go ahead and mark off parentheses. We don't have any parentheses. We can also mark off exponents because we don't have any of those. But now we have multiply, divide, add, and subtract. So let's go ahead and do multiply first. Well, if we look, we have 6 times 3. Well, 6 times 3 is going to be 18. And then we have that divided by 2, if we write out what's left. So now we have 5 plus 18 divided by 2 plus 9. Well, 18 divided by 2 is 9. And then let's, again, write out everything else we have left. So now we have 5 plus 9, which is 14, plus 10 more, which is 24. So our answer for number 8 is 24. So if y'all have any questions, make sure you watch this video again. I will be posting part B or morning math B. I'll be posting that on probably Friday. And then you will have Friday and Monday to complete B. But if you have any other questions, please let me know and I will be happy to help. I hope you all have a great day. Bye.